Good evening, myself Akash Mitra. Today I've come up with a new lecture and topic called closure. In my previous videos of advanced JavaScript, we have already discussed about synchronous and asynchronous functions. We have completed those topics but not in details. But in my next videos, I will come up with lots of examples and interesting examples so that you can master the asynchronous chapter completely, because it's unnecessary for advanced JavaScript too much. But today we will know a most important topic of advanced JavaScript, that is closure. So what is closure? Closure is very simple. Closure is a function that has access to its own scope. Suppose this entire place is global scope. This is another scope. This is another scope. Suppose this is a function. This function can have access of its own scope, this scope, and this scope. It has an access and the scope where it is defined, and the global scope, outer global scope. But it cannot access this scope. This function cannot access anything inside this scope. Let's see with an example. Our first and very simple example is constant function 1. Let's take, and it has many names. Suppose this is a global scope. Let a is equal to 0. Okay, so let's do another function. This is global. Let's create another function. Function func as a name. This is another function. So what it will do, let's call this function inside the main function. Return func1. Whatever is there, it will be returned here. So console.log a, it can access the value of this a. So what can I do now? Let's create an object of this function or of this method. So let's constant abc as an object which holds the property of func1, properties and methods. So let's call abc, or rather directly we can call this function. So let's see what is the name. Closure video.js. Let's check it out. Return. Okay, here is my mistake. Watch, it has a global, this function has a global access, and that this scope where it defined inside this scope, that access is also have is equal to 0. So I'm using template literals and add and b. This is what I have, 0 and 0. If I do it 1, then okay, let's make it little bit interesting. Suppose I'm calling another function func3, and this function has a variable constant. Let's c is equal to 0. Suppose this is what, it's c is equal to 0 and it is returning this c. But can we access this function? Definitely no, not possible. It will show me an error. It's definitely yes, this is defined in this function. But what if I do this? I'm doing a simple experiment. What if I do this thing? Let's check. Watch. What is the funda over here? It's very simple. It can this function can access the global scope, and it can access anything, any function, object, any variable declared within the scope, in the same scope where it is defined to, it itself defined to. And suppose this is a function. This function contain a variable c. It is neither in this, it is neither, this function is neither inside this scope or vice versa. That is the reason this variable is can't get access by this function. This function can't access this c. But in this same scope, as like this variable is here, in the same scope, like this variable is declared, same way this function is also declared. So to access this c, if I make this return c, means this function is returning nothing but c variable which is declared, and this function is declared within the same scope where this function is also declared, and that's like variable declared, whatever it is there, it can access its own scope. This scope definitely it will access, and the scope things or properties or methods where it is defined himself. It is defined in this func1, and in func1 this is defined, so it can access this function. So if I give here a return, then it can get the variable indirectly through this function as a scope inside the func1 where the function is also there. This is the case, and now it's showing me 5. This is closure. In my next upcoming video, we will do lots of practices with closures. Like there are many methods, currying, partial functions and all. So up to this much, thank you so much.